Sup, bitches? I literally have a freaking hair tie on my ankle. What is wrong with me? Hey guys, what's up? It's Sam. I am currently at my parents' house. I'm back home for Christmas. I was just being really emo, being reflective, and I was kind of thinking about last school year. If you guys didn't know or like were not following me last year, I was so going through it, I guess is the best way to put it. I had a really rough time my freshman year, and I think I made it pretty known, like I was not quiet about it. So I figured I would tell you guys some of the mistakes I made my freshman year, because this year I have found that like kind of outside things aren't like so much better. Like there are still shitty moments, but like I found that like a lot of my issues last year were just cause like me and like mistakes I made, and I didn't really want to admit that to myself. So we're gonna do it now, I guess. I wrote down the things on my phone that I wanted to talk about, but I guess there's definitely room for edit. So if there's something that's not on my phone and I mention it, that's kind of why. Or if I'm looking down at my phone and like talking, that's also why. All right, let's do it. I can't believe I did that. Okay, anyway, I'm old now. I don't know what the kids are doing. Let's get into all the mistakes I made my freshman year of college. I hope this maybe helps those of you who are either in your freshman year currently and are maybe having a bit of a rough time. Maybe this helps you turn it around. Or maybe this is good for those of you who aren't yet in college and kind of want to avoid some of the mistakes. That being said though, making mistakes helps you grow, blah, 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 blah. But if you can avoid them and you can grow before you even make the mistake, that's pretty ideal. So try and do that, but also don't feel bad if you make mistakes, because like that's just kind of, that's how it works. Like that's how being a human is. So let's get into it though, actually, finally. Okay, mistake number one, my dorm. So some of you guys may know that I had a single my freshman year. I lived in Spruce, which is a dorm at IU. I really liked it. Like the dorm itself was honestly really nice, and like when all of my friends were like talking about how they had mold issues in their dorm and like their clothes were growing mold and like they had to go to the hospital because of mold, I was kind of feeling pretty lucky because I was like, I don't have any mold problems. Not to brag, but I also didn't have any friends or fun. So I originally was gonna go to a school in California, but like the vibes were just weird. But like for real, it was just really weird, and like everything about it just felt off and wrong. It just felt like the wrong decision to make. So literally in the middle of, I think it was like June, I decided to go to IU. And then it kind of put like a wrench into like a lot of the typical things that you would do before your freshman year. Like deciding my dorm was like a lot harder than it would be because all of the dorm options were full. So I was on a wait list for my dorm. It was just like a whole freaking mess, and there was just like a lot of things that were a lot less fun because of that. So anyway, fast forward, I wind up getting a dorm, and I get like the exact dorm that I wanted, right? And I was so excited because at first I was like really disappointed, because originally I was gonna be in like this makeshift dorm, and it was just like a lounge that they were gonna put beds in with like 6 other girls, and I was like, oh my god, I can't do that. And now looking back, that sounds like honestly a lot of fun. I think that could have been a really cool experience, but I didn't wind up having that. So I had a single. Having a single isn't like a death sentence for fun or like making friends in college, but it made it so much harder. And on top of that, like my suite mate and I, like I feel like we got along fine, honestly. Like I didn't really have any problems with her. I don't think she had any problems with me. We were like comfortable enough to be like slightly annoying, in the sense of like, I don't know, sometimes maybe I'd play music too loud, or like she would have people over and they were loud, and like it was honestly fine because we both were cool with that kind of stuff. But it was also hard because like we weren't super close, and then I know so many people who are like bestie pals with their roomies, and don't get me wrong, I know just as much as that happens, it also goes the other way. Like I'm kind of experiencing like, oh hey, roommates don't always get along, and that's okay. That's just how it works. But I do feel like maybe I could have had a really fun time if I would have had a roommate. So I wish I would have been more open-minded to that. Another thing that I was really bad about my first like month of college, a lot of random external things happened, things that like I could not control, things that would have been shitty regardless of where I was, that I feel like it was just harder because like, oh, now I'm at school and like now I'm already like going through this big change in my life, and then these like shitty things are happening, and like it was a rough time. But I think because of that, I was like, no, I don't want to like hang out with like anyone that I know from high school. Like I didn't want to get into that whole, I guess, like rut of being like friends with the people you were friends with in high school and like hanging out with them. None of my close friends went to IU. It was still like I had the opportunity to hang out with people who I knew at least somewhat from high school, and I just chose not to, and I'd like cancel plans or not even make them to begin with. And I think that was just such a negative thing, because there were plenty of people who were like in the same position that I was, and like were like, hey, let's hang out. And then I was like, nah, I'm good, thanks. I really wish I would have done that. I think that could have made my experience a lot better. Another thing that I screwed up so badly with is I would never go to the dining halls. I would always be at like these little C stores, which I think is like convenience store, I guess. And they didn't have the best options, but like that's where I'd get all my food from. So I'd literally be eating like sweet potatoes and like microwaving them, and then just like a lot of microwavable meals, a lot of ramen, just like not good. Additionally to that, I also didn't get any of like the social part of being in like the dining halls and eating there. If I were to ever get food from the dining halls, I would always just like bring it back to my dorm and just like eat it there. And that's also not so fun. Like just chill, just relax, just eat it in the dining hall. It's not that deep. But I also think that was a result of me having a single dorm. So I'm like, if I could just go back to my dorm and like relax, why wouldn't I do that? And I get the idea of that, but I also think that I wish I would have been more open to just like chilling in the dining halls and like letting myself relax there, I guess. Something that I do literally all the time now, but I never did my freshman year. I don't want to say never, but like I pretty rarely did it my freshman year, was go off campus. I didn't know a lot about like off campus except for like Kirkwood, which if you're familiar with IU, it's just like right off of campus, and there's like different shops, different like dining places, whatever. And yeah, like that's fun and it's a good time, but there are so many other things like just minutes away from there that I wish I would have experienced. And I just never really did until this past year. I wish that this was something I did, because I think I would have been so much more comfortable like walking around and having fun, and then I wouldn't have had that feeling of being like trapped at school. I would have just like been able to explore college a little bit more and what my college town had to offer. Another thing that kind of ties into like the whole like bad eating habits aspect is I wasn't working out enough, and I was just like not eating enough either. Like just in general, my nutrition sucked. I wound up losing like a pretty decent amount of weight my freshman year. I've like gained it all back since, but it was just like not healthy, and it wasn't like for any reason other than like I was just not eating enough food. I was just like eating at really weird hours. There'd be days where I probably had like 2,000, 3,000 calories, and then there'd be days where I had like 500, and like that's kind of crazy and like not normal. And then I would just also never work out, so I was not like, you know, feeling good and like working out and having just like a good moment. I'm still really bad about working out and like eating well, but I at least eat somewhat better and I work out a little bit more. And I'm not microwaving sweet potatoes all the time, you know. This is very specific to the first kind of like 2 months of college. I studied like I did when I was in high school, which was not really studying at all. I think this is something that like, it's hard to not make this mistake, because you have to learn how to study better. Like it's just a part of college, and it's super normal your first semester to not do the best. And kind of like build your grades up from there. But ideally, if you learn how to study as soon as you get to school and like really work on it and make it a priority, I think that that will help you so much, because a lot of your like 100 level classes, they're not necessarily easier, but they're kind of built in a way to where studying for a lot of them is really, really similar. A lot of them are like midterm final, and then there's like other work in between. So studying for things like that is really, really important, because like midterms and finals are like really heavy weights on your grades usually. So I highly recommend learning how to study as soon as you can, figuring it out. If you guys want a video on this, I can totally do it. My grades, like not to toot my own horn or anything, are freaking fantastic. So if you guys want a video on how I study, This is coming from someone who didn't get great grades in high school either, so like I just like have learned how to study just kind of now and like figured it all out. So if you guys want to see that, I can definitely do that. Okay, I want to be careful with how I phrase this because I don't want you to hear this and then think like, oh, let me just not do this at all. But there's a correct way to do this, okay? Let me elaborate on what I'm trying to say. So I would do every single bit of like the reading that I was assigned. Like I would look at it and I would read like 60 pages and be so mentally exhausted, barely even like understanding what I'm reading. Just like, no, I actually read it. And like, look at, I'm such a good student. Wow, great job. There are so many classes to where you don't have to do all the reading for. I 100% promise you. And so you should not do it. That sounds like such bad advice, but honestly, like, you don't have time to read all of your readings for all of your classes, particularly if you are like kind of like an arts major. It's not the easiest thing to do. I feel like a lot of like humanities classes are like, read everything about all of this stuff all the time. And it's just annoying, and I don't want to do that. So you have a couple of options. You can either like try and find a summary of it. You can skim it. I like to read kind of like the headers. Again, this is like stuff I could all talk about in a video, but don't read all of it. Find a shorter way to do it. Maybe talk to some friends. Maybe sometimes you read the readings and then sometimes they read the readings and you guys summarize it to each other. There's better ways to do it. Don't find yourself in a position to where you're reading all the reading for every single class. There are some classes where you don't even have to do the readings. That being said, it's super smart too. You honestly, ideally should. A lot of times stuff on the reading will come up on tests and you will never have talked about it in class. But it's kind of just like you get extra points for doing it, so you may as well kind of work toward doing it. But then again, there are some classes where it's just like ancillary, you don't really need to do it. So figure that out first and foremost. And then let me know if you guys want a video of me kind of explaining how to study, how to read for your classes a little bit better. And I can definitely do that. Another really big mistake that I made that was like technically not totally in my hands, but something that like I can't believe I did that. I took 8 a.m.s every single day. It was so bad. I can't believe I did that. I kind of had to. I was in a like writing class that I think all freshmen have to take, and so I was like, okay, let me just take that now. And then I was in an intro to media class, and that was like the last slot that was available for it, and of course I had to do that too because it was a prereq for literally every media class there is at IU, so I had to do that as well. It wasn't the worst thing in the world, but I found myself not going to my classes nearly as much as I should. The one that I had Monday, Wednesday, Friday was one that I could definitely get away. I mean, couldn't get away with not going to, like I had to go. We had like certain attendance requirements, and then additionally, there was a lot of homework in that class and a lot of like writing that we had to do, and all of our homework was told to us in class, so like you were screwed if you didn't come. And then my media class was not required, so I found that a lot of times I would just like look at the slides online, which was not great, especially since like that was a major course. So try and show up to those. Good tip. I also had a really hard time my second semester showing up to classes that didn't require attendance. And I promise you 100% you will get a better grade in a class if you show up. Sounds crazy, right? I don't know why, but like even just sitting there and listening to whatever your professor has to say is gonna like sink into your brain somehow, some way, and you will do so much better. It's like a very good way of studying for your finals without actually having to like sit down at the end of the semester and go over everything and be like, let me study all of this information now. It's like you kind of already did, and now you're just reviewing it. I can't stress that enough. Please show up to your classes. It's like very, very important. Don't skip classes that aren't necessary to skip. But that being said, I highly recommend taking absences when you actually need them. Like if you feel like you're really sick that day, take it. Just take it. Maybe email your professor, be like, hey, not gonna be in class today, not just ditching for funsies, I have the plague. So keep your professors informed. Go to office hours is also a really good tip that I never take, but it's good to do. I started doing that this semester and it's helped me incredibly, so I really recommend it. Especially go to office hours with GAs, like graduate students that are kind of like instructors for either your course or like assistant instructors. It's such a good idea. Number one, they're always so chill. Like they're only a couple years older than you and they were just recently in your shoes, so they know exactly what you're going through. And then additionally, like they're also like this authority figure too, so they're gonna kind of like be helpful, and oftentimes they're the one that's grading your stuff. So really recommend that. That was just a for funsies tip. That wasn't even on my phone. Look at me go. Another thing that I really recommend your freshman year, if you can do it obviously, is try and be confident. I think I really lacked in confidence my freshman year because I got to school and I was like, oh my god, I know no one. Everyone here is like gorgeous. And it's like very intimidating once you go to school. Like, I feel like when I was in my hometown, it was just like, you know, such a like small pond and like all these like fishies and shit, right? But like then you get to school and it's like a giant pond. It's like an ocean actually, and now there's like sharks and you're like, chill. It's just kind of intimidating, and like that's a totally normal reaction to have, but I wish that I didn't let it get in my head so much, because I think I really missed out on a lot of things and a lot of like confidence for myself that I could have had a lot earlier if I would have just been chill and like would have kept the confidence that I had in high school. Another thing is to be really open-minded about certain activities. If something seems even slightly interesting to you, try and do it. Try and do it however you can. Like, it's just such an important thing to do. I felt like I was like, oh my god, I have this identity that's so mine, and like I'm this person and I'm so set in this. I can't do things that, you know, stray away from that. And I get that, because I didn't want to like go to college and become like this new person and just like not even know myself and not allow myself to experience other things. But I think by doing that, I kind of like put myself in a box, and then I was like, you can only do these things up into this box. Anything else is weird. It's off limits for you. Don't do it. But the reality is, do whatever seems interesting to you, have fun, be safe, obviously. A lot of my problems clearly like were not wild or crazy. Like, I didn't go out and like binge drink. I feel like a lot of these things are kind of things that a lot of people don't really talk about, just like normal college problems. Obviously there are things that like maybe you go out and party a little bit too much and then your grades are suffering. Like, that's a problem with a pretty easy solution. Just stop doing that as much. But I think these are kind of things that a lot of people don't like to mention, because a lot of people don't like to think that like, oh my god, I got to college and like everyone is thriving and I'm not. The reality is a lot of people are having a rough time, and those who aren't are like very, very lucky in the sense that they aren't like that. This just worked out so well for them, but that's so not normative. So don't feel bad if that's not you, and also don't feel bad if that is you. That's awesome. But it sometimes takes a while for other people. I also think I kind of like dropped the notion of there being a perfect college. Like, I don't necessarily think IU was like, I guess like the perfect college for me, or like my dream school. It was more just like a smart option, and like it had a good major that I really wanted to do, and it was like one of the only schools that I found that has like a media major instead of communications, and I really like that. And yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with the choice that I made now. But I think that there are still like exciting things in my future, and don't feel like you have to do all of those exciting things right now. You have plenty of time to have fun. Who thought that I would be so happy and like in such a good place and like giving advice a year later? I wouldn't have. I think that concludes this video. If you guys have any advice or anything you've learned so far your freshman year, or I don't know, things that you feel like you might struggle with, let me know down below, and we'll all just like work together and either like read other people's advice or tell other people what your advice is, kind of all that stuff. So I hope you guys enjoy, and I hope you guys have some stuff to share down below, because I'd really love to see it. All right, I will catch you guys in my next video. Do not forget to subscribe down below. I'm actually gonna start uploading regularly. I'm like clearly in a really good space, and I'm very, very lucky and just like so happy to be in that space. So thank you guys so much for sticking around, and I will see you guys later. Bye.